Good afternoon. My name is Mark Goodman. I represent Score Chicago. You're watching live interactive call-in TV here on CAN TV 21. This is our seventh of our elevator pitch contest contestants. My guest here is Simeon Schnapper. Okay, Simeon has a fascinating company called Youtopia. We'll put up a slide just to summarize it. September 11th, Youtopia, and our guest is Simeon. Simeon, each one of our guests here as part of the elevator pitch contest have started out by giving their elevator pitch. So why don't you give the audience your elevator pitch?
I'd love to. Youtopia is an engagement platform that uses points, badges, and leaderboards to make learning more fun. Everybody wants to have fun. If you inject fun into the equation, there's more learning.
It's a very, very brief elevator pitch. Just so you know, this is a live call-in show. Daryl here is on the phone. If you have a question relative to small business or starting our business, or you're going to learn a little bit about Simeon's business here, you can call in. It's 312-738-1060. Daryl will check you out, and we can put your call up on the air. So, Simeon, if you win the $5,000 prize, the prize for the elevator pitch contest, first prize is $5,000. If you win this $5,000, how are you going to use it to help grow your business?
Well, you know, that's such a huge amount, Mark. I think we'll probably buy an entire building, then develop probably 20 servers. No, I think the $5,000 will go to continuing to grow the business. It is everything from rent to development to marketing to travel to spreading the gospel of what we're doing at Youtopia.
So tell me a little bit more about the gospel of Youtopia.
Sure.
I asked you, what's the gospel of Youtopia? How would you answer that question?
Well, first and foremost, we are an engagement platform and classroom management platform.
Okay, so what the heck is an engagement platform?
Sure. When you're a teacher or a student, you have to use tools to teach. And this curriculum is anything from math to science to service learning, after school activities, anything that is tied to learning.
So how would an engagement platform help me learn math?
You would learn math faster, easier, better, based on the fact that you're first presented with what we call a challenge.
Okay.
Everyone knows the metaphor of a challenge.
Right.
And in fact, on our platform, we call it a challenge because what we've learned is that the most powerful neurochemical associated with a challenge is something called fiero, and that's the craving to overcome a challenge, not just to win, but to overcome a challenge. So you would log into Youtopia, you would see a math challenge, and those might be a series of activities.
So what would be I logged into Youtopia, I saw a math challenge. What would be the first kind of math challenge I would see?
Let's make it really simple. It's subtraction.
Okay.
And you would see a series of traditional curriculum that teaches you subtraction. But with each of these questions, whether it's a test or simple problems to solve, there's points associated with it. So you've played video games?
Off and on.
Okay. You've played board games?
Mm-hmm.
You've played cards?
Right.
Oftentimes there's points associated with that. So when you're going through any learning pathway in Youtopia, you're also accumulating points.
Okay, so you would present me with a set of subtraction problems, and as I answered these correctly, I hope, don't get any points for answering them incorrectly.
Correct.
Okay, so as I answer them correctly, I would get points.
Yeah, you would begin to accumulate points and then rise on the leaderboard. Leaderboard is very similar to a scoreboard. So when you're in a small group, a class, this is even extended out into entire schools where classes can see where other classes are, or the larger utopian idea is states can see where other states are, countries can see where other countries are. But you would see exactly where you rank. And there's a great element of competition and collaboration. And if that could be introduced properly, if that could be introduced into any curriculum, you really begin to hone in and you really begin to take advantage of a very basic human nature, which is to collaborate or compete.
Okay, well, I understand the competition part of a leaderboard. how would you do a collaboration?
I think there's a lot of elements in behavior design we're starting to see, whereas based on setting up groups, that's another feature we have where you're not just a student, but you could be within a group. And teamwork, collaboration, leadership. We start to see these really cool 21st century schools that intertwine with what might be a simple subtraction, addition, subtraction, arithmetic, or whatever the curriculum is you're trying to teach.
So it was kind of like if I was doing my subtraction, I had an issue and I had a team member that I could call on that team member to help me out.
You would be able to see that, yes.
We have a question, Daryl?
Comment.
A comment. Okay, go ahead, please. You have a comment?
When you look at some of the research, whether from University of Chicago or maybe Harvard, when you look at students that do well in school and what drive them, they would tell you a lot of times it's for their own personal satisfaction, their own personal enrichment. It isn't like no carrot at the end of it. It's learning is the thing that make them happy, for their own development. And like I say, it's not no type of reward at the end of it. Mm-hmm. We look at the research.
Okay, so let's build on what you're saying here. So I'm an individual here, and I'm looking for my own personal reward. How can Youtopia help build my own self-esteem?
Building self-esteem is definitely something that occurs. There's another aspect. I think we just talked about the competition and the points, but there's something called a digital badge. And what happens is when you complete a course or you do well in something, you receive this badge with all of the evidence of what you did to learn that badge, what you did to earn that badge. And within that badge, there's also this sense of recognition. So when I am learning, even if it's for this intrinsic, I just want to do it for self-esteem, I just want to do it because I want to be a better person, I care about learning. I still want recognition. And I still want to be able to see what I learned and how I learned and when I learned. And I want to share that with other people. So a reward can be two types of rewards. One, where you're getting something, and we certainly see some of our customer base giving out rewards for certain levels of performance. But the majority, we're seeing performance increases based on the fact that there's recognition and you see a clear learning path to receiving that digital badge, which is another type of reward.
Okay. I mean, this all sounds very interesting, and it sounds like it'd be fun to be learning off of this platform, but who buys your product?
We primarily are a business-to-business company, so we don't sell to the student. We sell directly to the school. I think our closest school is 2 blocks from here, actually. We're based in Chicago, so some of our first customers were Chicago. It was very easy to walk down the block if there was a bug or we didn't understand something. Instead of getting on the phone, actually just walk over there. They chose to use it because they have a very rigorous, what's called service learning curriculum. If you're a student in Chicago Public Schools, or a student in any religious school, a charter school, there's this component that requires you to do a lot of community service, volunteerism, where you have to go to a nonprofit, learn what it's about, write a reflection, in theory tie that to curriculum, oftentimes tying it to curriculum, and it's mandatory. So when we walked into the school, they said, we love this idea of engagement. We love the idea of points and badges and leaderboards and making it more exciting for something that was A, either boring, or B, was not tracked well at all. They've since, using us, have tracked over 35,000 hours of service learning. All of the students who are now graduating seniors have a record in the form of a digital badge of everything that they did in their high school career to earn that badge, which is helping them in several areas, not just the self-esteem and that intrinsic reward, but college applications, job opportunities, certainly for those going vocationally.
So how would Youtopia help me as a student and help me as, I guess, the teacher in the school present to the community, present, if I'm a student, to the colleges I'm applying to, my service experience?
Right now, it's a very exciting time for what we're doing, and it's one of the reasons we started this. We're a young company. We're only going into our 3rd year, but We launched the company after winning a competition specifically around gamification and digital badging. What we're starting to see at a specification level, what we're also starting to see from a lot of colleges is badging being a specific thing that is tied to transcripts. So when you're applying for a certain school, whether it's a scholarship or just trying to get in, colleges are beginning to accept badges as a form of criteria.
Is this kind of a variation on Eagle Scouts or something?
It is, and it's 21st century. So in the Eagle Scouts, you saw that, and it's still the same. There's this same metaphor of like you see the image, and you can kind of get it just based on it. But when you click on it, you see all the evidence of it. So if it was service learning, you'd see that whole record. You might see a video, you might see the reflections, you might see the assessment that the teacher actually wrote on why that student was worthy of receiving that badge.
So let's go a little bit back to this idea of making money and how you make money, because I think a lot of people have ideas about like creating an internet business, and internet businesses are easy to conceptualize, but a lot of times there is the question, how do you make money? So you're selling to the school. What's your business model? Is it like per number of students? Is it per number of hours? Is it like what? How do you do this?
It's a monthly fee. It's we're as traditional and old school as you can get. We call it SaaS, subscription based. Most customers will sign a multi-year contract, and it's an annual fee per student. We do a lot of stuff in after-school programs where it's kind of a quick hit. So it's not going to be an annual, it's going to be a summer program or a month-long program.
So how would that work in a month-long program? I mean, what would be an example of a month-long program? How would it work? And if I was a school, what would it cost me?
Our general pricing is $1 per month per student.
Okay.
So if you're using it for a month-long summer program and you had 10 students, you'd pay $10.
Okay.
And if you did our math with subtraction and that whole challenge, you'd have known that already. And you would have had a badge to prove it.
Huh?
Exactly.
Well, I don't understand what you just said.
It was a callback to give me an example of how you might use Youtopia.
Okay.
And we were talking about math.
Okay.
And I said subtraction and addition.
Okay.
And I said $1. And then I did the math of 10 students. And
Okay,
it was $10.
would be
So it was
$10.
about 30.
So essentially what you're saying is that if I had a school and I wanted to use your platform, that I could fairly easily just, what do I do? Call you up? Do I go online? Is it that easy that I can just say that, do I fill out a form? I mean,
Yeah,
how
you
does
go to
this work?
Youtopia.com, you click a button that says, I want to sign up.
Okay.
It asks you if you're a classroom, a school, non-for-profit, or other. If you're a school, it'll ask you for your zip code, and then it gives you a whole list of the schools that might be in that zip code. You select it, create a username and password. Then you get an email saying you're ready to go with a couple of links, a few YouTube tutorials. You begin to import your curriculum, and in many cases, you're ready to go and import an entire classroom in 10, 20 minutes.
So essentially, I design the way people can earn.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're content agnostic. We're not a math platform. We're not an English platform. We're this suite of tools that make learning more fun through gamification, through digital badging. It's up to you to decide what challenges you'll create, how many points should be worth this activity versus that activity. Should the badge be awarded after a week of performance, or maybe it's an entire year it takes to earn that badge. And that's no different than, the Boy Scouts metaphor that we used, or Eagle Scouts metaphor, in regards to you have to do a certain amount of things. So it gets into competency, it gets into performance, all the great things. When you're learning or when you're playing a game, you're totally engaged.
Okay. So if we have a few more minutes, if you have a question for Simeon, you give us a call at 312-738-1060. You say you sell to a lot of different kinds of educational institutions. Do you have a specific target that you focus on a day-to-day basis?
We're most concentrated in K-12. Again, You have to start somewhere. So we like to say we'll start $1 trillion vertical at a time. So we started with K-12, and it's been a very, at least for me, a really great place to be. You know, just seeing how minds develop, seeing what behavior design and triggers around game mechanics you can apply to a third grader versus a senior. That being said, there's a lot of nonprofits who use us, who have youth programs, who say, hey, we're doing this thing, we have a curriculum, we have certain activities, and we want to make it more fun and engaging. All the nonprofits, though, are traditionally youth-driven. So we shy away if someone called and it was a business and they said, hey, I want to, incent frontline sales to sell more widgets. That is not something we focus on, not our expertise, although the tool could be applied to anything.
How has the experience of your platform been different between a third grader and a senior in high school?
I think the inherent feeling for the third grader or the senior is equivalent. It's engagement. A senior might have a more mature sense of competition or recognition or self-esteem or grit than the third grader might, but it's still engagement, which is sometimes and often really hard to qualify. Like when you're engaged, what happens? You're in it, you're moving.
But it really becomes me as the teacher or the designer of the program to a little bit work out, that kind of engagement model. What kind of help do you give people as far as working out this model?
There's a lot of time up front, and when I say a lot of time, a conversation, pointing them to the right videos, talking about exactly what kind of outcomes they might want from their students, from their class, from their program. 9 times out of 10, it's looking at our videos and starting just with the idea even in your head. Some might use a piece of paper like, oh, this is my curriculum, these are activities. This should be 5 points, this should be 2 points. We do have a lot of schools and people sign up where we'll check in a week, and it's magical. They've created this incredibly dense learning pathway for tons of students with no intervention or help on our part. But right now, today I spent time on the phone with 2 new customers, and they just wanted that personal touch that was more than watch this video. They wanted that Q&A of, well, this is some of the problems I'm having in my classroom. Would you use a badge every week, or should it be a yearly thing? Or I said, this is 20 points, should this be 1 point? And I say, well, try it and see how it works. And with our platform, since everything is real time, you can edit things instantly and adjust depending on what kind of behavior you want.
So I think a lot of people have this question relative to an internet company. Is the nice thing about internet companies is they're really global.
Right.
The challenge is, how do you reach these customers and engage them? So what tools have you used to build awareness and to bring people down the sales path here?
Search engine optimization has been really helpful and viral, getting press, winning awards. We have a customer on every continent except Antarctica. And it's very interesting to see a Turkish school sign up. We had Shanghai and Hong Kong last week. We have Canada, a bunch of schools in Mexico recently signed up. So again, the idea is we just want to make learning more fun. We don't have a focus on the curriculum. We don't even have a focus necessarily on the culture or the language. Our system will read anything. And as long as you understand those really key core components that make a game a game.
So what are those core components that make a game a game?
Well, let's just pretend if we were playing cards and we were something happens. I mean, I can give you a list of 100 neurochemicals that are triggered from dopamine to serotonin to adrenaline.
But from a design point of view, what are a couple of those core components that I need to make sure I have in my game?
Yeah, the beginning, I mentioned this really cool neurochemical called Fiero. And that's this, it's only associated with reward. It's a fairly new discovered neurochemical. And it only happens when you're in a challenge, when you want to overcome an obstacle. It's not about winning, but it's kind of like the caller's first response about the reward isn't a gift or money or whatever. It's this intrinsic thing. You just want that. So that's one of a probably infinite amount of neurochemicals that make humans humans that we try to trigger.
So, but if I'm designing my task, my flow here, I have to come up with a set of tasks,
Yeah.
and I have to have a set of rewards,
Yeah.
and I have to find a way to value
Right.
the achievement of various tasks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a summary. Let me shift gears here a little bit. Here is what in your background got you to setting up this business?
For me personally, I've always been curious and a lifelong learner. So as we began this entity, there was a lot happening. And again, this is only cut to 2.5 years ago around digital, around gamification, around behavior design, psychology, and the fact, from a social impact perspective, what could be more important than education?
So where do you see your business 2 or 3 years from now, and what are you doing to get your business there?
Right now, it's focus, it's traction. You know, revenue is really important right now. We're going the revenue route more than the how do we get 1 billion users, although we're getting some users too. And in doing that, setting clear goals as to what level of growth we need to be at year 1, year 2, year 3, and achieving a lot of those milestones. Learning when we stumble, but also seeing some great things. We're like, oh, we didn't expect that. We didn't expect that one effort would bring us schools from this other country, or that there's this interesting spike in a particular type of learning that's just trending right now in schools, or certainly as we're dipping a toe into higher education, like, oh, really, there's this whole thing about soft skills and social emotional learning and multidimensional intelligence and ways that Youtopia makes all of those cool learning methodologies easier to implement and immediately accessible to a student base.
Well, one of the things that's nice about learning is that, you know, it's not like you're looking over your shoulder. If somebody's doing something cool, then I would like to know about it. So how do you have 1 minute to answer this, how do you
Sure.
help me as an educator learn what other educators are doing?
One of the great things that's beginning to happen right now, because we have a user base, is we'll get an inquiry from a teacher, any grade, any subject, and we'll be able to say there's been a lot of activity in that same grade and that same subject in this school, in this state, in this city. And then we'll say, why don't you look at what they're doing?
So you can also be a vehicle of sorts to help me as an educator connect with other educators who, one, may have a similar problem that I have, and two, on the other dimension, has past experience as far as leveraging the solution.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I'm going to hit a couple of quick slides to summarize some stuff at SCORE, and then we'll finish up here. I do want to remind everybody that we have the Small Business Expo coming up on October 3rd at the UIC Forum. This is from 8:30 to 3:30. You should be going online and registering for that. That's one of the premier events of the season. It's just some reasons why people come to SCORE. They're looking to buy or finance their business, and SCORE helps them with strategic issues and being on the internet. Some events, we're having this show this week. Next week we're going to have Tom Johnson on. Tom works with the city treasurer and is the Small Business Expo maven. So if you want to know more about the Small Business Expo, you can tune in next week. Also, we'll be doing a presentation October 1st, and once again, I encourage you to go to the Small Business Expo. Simeon is the last of our contestants here. If you do want to see more elevator pitches, you can go to snippitch.com. SCORE offers counseling and mentoring, an online appointment system, workshops, training. If you want to find SCORE online, we're at Twitter at SCORE Chicago, YouTube at SCORE Chicago Video. This show will be up on that channel probably tomorrow. Our website is www.scorechicago.org. If you want to contact us, drop us an email at scorechicago.org or give us a call at 312-353-7724. Well, Simeon, thank you for being our guest. Best of luck for you. If you want to know more about learning and the learning platform, it's utopia.com. And we'll see you and learn more about the Small Business Expo next week.